No, that's
Well,
about.
I said that to you at the
it.
beginning because when I started looking at Simon's book, which is really wonderful, and I was sitting there thinking about what philosophy is, and I know this must be what you think, talking about in your first class or something, but that learning how to die,
Yeah.
and therefore is learning how to live. And I think that is something that Montaigne, I'm going to say his name all along, but that he says, and that his kind of philosophy throughout. And that why he did what he did by keeping those journals and everything through time and those entries and I always it's just learning how to die. So learning how to die is learning how to live because you're dying. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? But you know what I'm saying? Because it seems so obvious. But I always think is it something else? Is it, is it actually coming right up and saying? Because that's the thing with meditation too, right? That meditation. That if you meditate every day and you really get into meditation is actually coming right up to the lip of death and saying, I'm here, I'm scared, I'm here, that's life. That if you can actually live in that place, that's where happens, right? I mean, it's the same kind of thing, right? I don't know.
Yeah, it's the idea that we live in a sort of counterfeit eternity and, philosophy begins with a drama. The drama of Socrates' death, which is written in as dramatic a form as the Greek tragedies that precede it, or going on around it. And Socrates is condemned to death or exile. He could leave, but he decides that he'll drink the poison and expire with his disciples around him. And then it's at that point that he begins to talk about the philosophy. The philosopher is half dead, right? The philosopher is already is the person who has an acute consciousness of their moment, their finitude, and doesn't flee or evade that, but finds some affirmation in relationship to it. And then he takes the poison and dies while spinning out these stories about the immortality of the soul, which you're never sure whether he really believes or not. And there's been a certain, tradition in philosophy of that idea of the tranquil death, right? Of dying in a... Now, at one level, I think it's fantastically important because we live in a culture that denies death and flees death and is therefore constantly shocked by it because we keep it at the edges all the time. We don't have the rituals. We don't know what to do. We're confused by death, and death is for us somehow obscene. We need to shove it somewhere else. Whereas there's another tradition which in philosophy, in the Christian saints, in all over all these different figures where that's what you keep your mind on. You see the skull beneath the skin, as Eliot said of Webster. You see that and Montaigne talks about the practice of the Egyptians when they bring a skeleton into the banqueting hall, and they say, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for soon you're going to look like this."
That's right. And
which would be great in Manhattan restaurants. I think
that would be great.
You could do. Maybe some of my students could do that. You just take skeletons round and say, "Look, it's going to be like this. You're going to die. So enjoy it."
That's right. But
because it's going to go very soon.
I heard someone sent me this sermon actually, this Christian sermon. That was yesterday. Someone sent it 12-minute long. It was really nice, actually, and it was pertaining to what happened in the school, with the children and the shooting, but ultimately he was talking about, but he brought that up, that the idea that Christians look at this cross all the time. And it was really, I thought, really wonderful. But he just said what you just said, but the idea that what Christianity, the Christians, we look at this cross, which is basically death and grief, and we're told to rejoice, and he was saying, I don't know how that's possible right now, but that is what that is, and there is, and I thought that was a very helpful thing to say to a bunch of people. Actually, it's like that is a really smart thing to say at a time like that.
Do you want to talk about the New Testament? Have you got any? Do you want to? I don't know. It seems silly not to talk about what happened.
Oh well, I did. That's
I've been thinking
I don't know if I had given. I think I just was feeling a lot, and then it was suddenly people around me, other parents, you know, and they would start saying things. But then this woman sent me this sermon, which I thought was just such a, she obviously wanted to go to church about it, and there wasn't somebody put it into words. And I thought that was a very smart thing to start to think about, that to look at death and rejoice. And what does that mean? Because obviously you don't want to rejoice. So what is that? And to get caught up in that thought, I thought was really something to go, a place to go.
Yeah.
You know, because there is really no understanding. There isn't a way to put this into words or meaning or anything, but to think about it in that context, I do think is something that we're uncomfortable with. But I did help me, right? You know, because right after that, I did go home to my kids, and I did make them dinner, you know, and I was home with them, and I wasn't thinking about what happened when I was around them. It's when I'm not with them, and then I start to think about it. And he also talked about the fact that we can't protect our children. And he kept repeating it as if it was it was eating at him, like truly as a person, that he was actually saying that what the truth is that we can't protect our children. And he actually raised his voice when he said it, because he obviously has kids, and he's just saying, we can't protect our children. And he kept saying it over and over again, like he was almost going to start crying or something, but he didn't, you know. And it was because it drove. I could tell it bothered him that was the truth that he had come to, but that was the truth, you know. And that moved me greatly, too. I thought that was very helpful.
And around them, a vast space, quite frightening. Maybe they are huddled against a wall, maybe they're around a fire,